Brandon, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, likewise. Excited for today.
Yeah, me too. This is very exciting. I've heard nothing but amazing things about you and your
Oh
work,
wow, that's
actually.
always nice to hear from my ego.
So, to start, I think it would probably be the best if would you be willing to just sort of explain, like both for myself and as well as everyone listening, who are you and what is it you do and why do they call you like the miracle manifester, magician, wizard, master? I'm ad-libbing a bit, yeah.
That's actually my exact title right there.
That's
You just
good.
nailed it. Yeah. Um, so the Facilitator of Miracles, my definition, similar to the definition of Course in Miracles, is a miracle is a shift in perception, and that shift in perception leads to positive synchronicity that reflects that shift in perception in your life. And so when we say, well, I help people create miracles, it's not based in what they physically create, although that's part of the equation. Because to me, there's this outdated paradigm of, well, you work with someone that's either a coach or in self realization to learn how to treat God like a cosmic vending machine and put your order in and go, I'd like this car, like this total old paradigm of law of attraction. And so for me, I focus on what an individual can control, which is their thinking, their mind. And when they shift perception, they shift to a reality that starts to reflect that perception. And I know that they don't know, and I don't know what the best possible outcomes for their life are. I'm not going to pretend to play God. So that's when that became really grounded for me, that's the only thing that we need to shift in order to create happiness and joy. Then I said, well, I don't know how else to describe what people experience when I work with them outside of miracles and surprise and positive synchronicity and all this kind of stuff. So that's what led to the name. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I mean, so how do you do that specifically?
Yeah. So my understanding of what creates all human suffering is someone believing, oh, it's really about questioning the thoughts or the beliefs that create stress. And there's so much, I think, confusion around what healing, that when someone is able to bring awareness to the unaware aspect of themselves, that often, unless they have a belief that it has to be more complicated than that often is enough to unplug them from a pattern of thinking, a pattern of feeling that leads to a pattern of acting that leads to all the results and experiences in their life. So, in simple, I help people question their own mind so they can detach from what they believe is true. And so, for the longest time, I thought, man, I have to know a lot in order to help people. It's all about what I know. And what I'm realizing now, it's all about not knowing. It's all about letting go of what I think I know. One of my friends says, it's not about what you don't know. He goes, it's about what you know that ain't so. And that's really what it is. It's about questioning what we think are facts that are causing us stress. And it's
Yeah.
really that simple.
Yeah. No, that's really beautiful. I think that that it seems to be that's maybe one of the like foundational things in all modalities of healing and shifting from one paradigm to another is really starting with more of like the vibrational, the inner, you know, perception of how things are. The moment that you can free yourself of the limitations of like this is the way that life is and expand into something new, it's just like just as I guess as you've probably have it in your name, miracles unfold, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's because when someone crystallizes a meaning, they say, this means that, and that's it, that can't change. Then if it's a negative meaning, I don't have enough money, I need to be making more money than I am. I'm not going to be supported if I act on my passion. These are some of the most common ones.
Mm.
Then what they're saying is, I'm believing right now in a future that doesn't exist. They're saying, I don't have enough money for something in the future because right now it's never true. It's never true that they need to know more, that they need more money than they have right now, then they need a better relationship than they have right now. It's always going to be some sort of fear about a future. And the funny part about the future is created based on the choices you make now. So when someone is injecting meaning into reality that is negative, it's always going to be to try to avoid a future. And to try to avoid the future puts you in a stressful place now because you can't control those outcomes. And now you start creating a life that is going to start reflecting back to you being out of control because you're creating that future now. So what's the best way to stress? Get a future. Believe that there's such a thing as a future and that you can somehow control every aspect of it. It's the best way to get stress.
With what you just described, it's very interesting, especially as it as it relates to even like business and earning a living for yourself, sort of thing. One of my business mentors, who's been helping me learn how to run a studio and all this, had a lesson at one point where he's like, look, if you're here, and here's the curve of where you want to be, and here's where you want to be. It's like you can't make decisions from down here. You have to put yourself in the mindset of being up here, and that's what will actually get you there. Yeah. So it seems very synchronous, and I wanted to ask you too. There's an astrology teacher who I just love. She described at one point, which she's more of an esoteric mysticism / astrology teacher. She said that the greatest tragedy of poverty is not the poverty itself, but the lack of education and imagination in the impoverished societies. It's not just physically poor, but it's emotionally and imaginatively, creatively poor. And that leads to them just staying in the same reality because they're not taking these, creative leaps of faith into making something that could really change their reality.
Yeah. And because there's this belief on the planet that we are separate from our reality, that we're separate from our circumstances, often the untrained or just unaware mind, that you and all of us have had at some point, where we go, oh, well, those circumstances are solely responsible for the experience of the people within the circumstances. And then the solution becomes, okay, how do we change the circumstances? Meanwhile, not realizing that the circumstances are a product of an individual and collective belief system. And, they say in the law of attraction, well, you can't say that, someone that was abused attracted that, and this whole thing. It's not about whether or not someone attracted it or not, and to shame or blame someone for attracting something negative. It's just about understanding it's all a co-creation. Everyone witnessing it is co-creating that experience on some level. It's almost like there's responsibility around the board, but just understanding that this is not, in a sense, affecting them, but reflecting them. Then we go, if it's reflecting the consciousness, then we can actually change something that's in our control, because we can't just change all of those circumstances like that and predict and control future circumstances. And so there's so much time being spent on trying to change circumstances, not realizing that even if the circumstances shift, there might be a temporary shift in the individual, but for a lot of them, their quality of life, at least emotionally, and what's going on between their ears, is not really going to shift.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's like maybe you do succeed eventually, quickly or slowly, of changing the circumstance, but then the problem just comes back in another format, right?
Exactly. I guess it'll just keep manifesting.
It's just there's so many people who, they'll go through a breakup, and then they'll have a new, it's like, I'm looking for something new, something fresh. And then it's just the same problem over and over, and break up, the same kind of person, same kind of energy that they're dealing with over and over, because and they never realize that they're the common factor in that.
Exactly. And just the statement, I'm looking for something. It's like, well, you're going to keep looking then, because that's what you're doing. You're looking. That's very different than finding or having. So it's like, that's happened so much in relationships. Man, you know what? I just learned so much about this relationship, and now I know what I want, and I'm ready, and I'm calling this in, and it's fine to have a desire, but very often the people that have desires about things don't need to announce to other people they have the desire. They don't need to. They can, but often it's, well, this is what I want. And what I found is wanting just creates more wanting. I might prefer this would feel good, but if there's absolutely no need, then it's a true preference. And preference implies I have a choice, meaning I can have it and be happy, or I can not have it and be happy. And that's when you really know you've learned, the lessons from the relationship.
I like that a lot. It's I guess maybe this even brings something to the like the consistency of a spiritual practice. Even if it's like a daily gratitude meditation or a daily, even if it's just like doing something that gets you, maybe you're going for a walk or a run, or doing something that with that consistency helps you ground that in. And the first one I thought of was the gratitude meditation, because it's like if it's a relationship or more money or more whatever it is that you're looking for in your life, or even just like having inner peace, the state of taking some time to feel as if you have those things, but like breathing into the gratitude for the experience will just like amplify your energetic field, bringing in more and more of that into your reality, wouldn't it?
Totally. And I think there's a lot of weight on like, I want to have this divine union relationship. And then you create this like idol that says, this is very special. I will be more happy, more whatever, once I have this. This is the goal. And often you may be missing divine union relationships right in front of your face, which could be a relationship with yourself, a tree, another person. Like right now, this is the only relationship really that you and I are in. This is like the most important relationship in our life because it is what's happening, and if I go, I need to go sit on the toilet after this, that will be the most important relationship that I'll have. So when you start treating all the relationships as equal and you go, wait a second, that's what life is. It's a relationship. It's constant relating and reflecting, and there's none that are more sacred or better than others. Then it's like you're constantly surrounded in love and gratitude for the relationships that you're in. And then you're in a place of finding, I'm already in amazing relationships. I have so many amazing relationships because I treat them that way. Then you just tend to attract really amazing relationships.
Yeah, I guess that, yeah, in contrast to almost like shunning other relationships that are before you, because it's not that idol or that picture in your mind that you think that you're after or trying to create.
Right. Because it's like, oh, I create that idol. What do I really want? Connection. It's always a feeling. Well, how do you feel when you're in line and you actually connect to the person that's checking out your bags? And you just, for some reason that day, you're like, I'm going to ask them how their day is going. And you start talking to them and they just start sharing some stuff with you. And you're like, it was such a nice conversation. And you feel the connection in that moment. And you're like, wow, there's 8 billion people on the planet. Like, this is always available. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. How do you feel about then, like, with all of the chaos and intense changes of 2020? Everyone's wearing masks. Everyone's isolating from each other. How do you perceive that in sort of the effect that it's having on global consciousness?
Yeah, really good question. Definitely had a lot of transformation around this. Had like my rebel stage of it, and one of my buddies was talking about archetypes, and this really gave me a really really great shift. It was like I didn't even notice the unconscious rebelling and resisting, and when I became aware of it, I said, "Oh, this is a call actually for a trailblazer kind of energy, to just blaze a new path in the midst of everything without resisting it. Just saying, this is what works for me." And so for me, what really worked was dropping the definitions that say I'm any less free or able to connect with people because of outside circumstance. So it was another level of me asking the question, can I actually gain freedom? Is that something I can actually gain or lose? That was a really foundational belief for me. I think, especially as men or masculine energy is, always leans kind of in that direction of seeking freedom. So for me, I was really questioning, what do I think gives me freedom? And then I said, can I actually even be more free than I am right now? And so just through that self-inquiry, I said, if someone asked me to wear a mask and that's what they prefer, and I don't have a definition, I don't have a belief, if I couldn't believe that it's going to limit me in any way, then who would I be in that moment? you know? And for me, and this might be different for others, I said, okay, this establishment requires a mask. Great. I'm still going to have a great time and connect with people and do my thing. And so it hasn't really phased me, but it took me, it took that self-inquiry and questioning of what I was defining things as. And I feel like that's all we can really control is like, what is your relationship to the pandemic? What is your relationship to these regulations? And also understanding what you put out is what you get back. If I want to live a life where people are honoring my preferences, then if I go into an establishment and I truly am honest with myself, and wearing a mask and doing the social distancing doesn't take away from my ability to choose to feel connected, to be myself, to still express myself in all ways that I would, while honoring the preferences of that establishment, then I'm either going to walk away to say, me honoring this is not aligned, or I'm going to honor it, but I'm not going to purposely rebel against it, because then I'm telling the universe, I want people to rebel against me, because that's really what I'm doing in that moment. I'm in a state of resistance. So it's definitely been a tool to sharpen my discernment.
Yeah.
And I think if people don't have that self-inquiry process, then it can seem very constricting and restricting. But again, it's about asking yourself the question, who is really constricting me in this moment? Not in the future of what all this is going to lead to, but right now, sitting here listening to the podcast, am I being oppressed by something outside of me? It's always going to be no if you're being honest with yourself. And the good thing about this moment is it is every moment. This is the moment, and every moment is the same moment from a different point of view.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I really appreciate the perspectives that you're bringing here to the table here, because there's so much fear around this whole thing, and then like conspiracies on both sides, the whole thing. Like there was a meme that I heard of the other day that was like, where are you on the pandemic chart? It was like, on this side you're driving in your car by yourself with your mask on, and on this one you're in the basement learning about the Illuminati.
Yeah.
So
that's accurate.
I mean, yeah, it's so intense out there. I mean, have you experienced a lot of just like working with people and your clients and everything, like just like miraculous transformations, even as it relates to this subject?
Actually, yeah. So here's the interesting part. The first thing that I did when I started to feel resistance towards the pandemic and fear coming up is stopped and went within and did the self-inquiry and questioned what I was believing that was causing me stress. Maybe 3 months later, we had a retreat out here in Sedona. I live in Sedona. So we're also in a totally different reality in Sedona.
Yeah.
It's like 50-50 here. Like half of everyone is like, what pandemic? And they'll ask you to take your masks off in stores. And then the other half are like in the pandemic. So it's a really interesting place to be right now. Love it. So as I made that shift and started to not really, it's almost like I'd forget there was a pandemic. I'm sure you've had that experience sometimes. I might like see some things, but I'm just acting in my excitement. And I'm like, okay, I'm not really being affected. I don't feel affected by what's going on in the collective at this point. A lot of the people, I'd say majority of them that are in our programs or that came out to the retreat had the same exact beliefs, because they were reflecting me. They were reflecting our little bubble reality.
Yeah.
So, we had people travel out and, maybe 2 months ago when things were a little more intense, from all parts of the world to Sedona, getting on planes, layovers. And, they had some things come up, and it usually connects back to the fear of death, the fear of being out of control, powerlessness, and really the same steps that I've taken myself through will take them through, and always comes, to the same realization that they're believing a belief that just is not true. That is literally doesn't make any sense, but they just have to realize that themselves. But moreover, like more often than not, it's been a really one-to-one reflection with my immediate circle of clients and community that have just kind of been reflecting, what I most strongly believe about the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting. You're just talking about or you reminded me of like in the Sedona vibe of like what pandemic versus, it's really serious. Um, I just got back late last night from a business trip to Edmonton. I was like it was like a workshop that I was taking that was there. But I had like one free day where I was mostly spending with family, but in the morning I had some time with friends and we went to West Edmonton Mall. And I don't know if you're familiar with this place. It's like the largest mall in all
I've
of
been there
Canada.
once.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it looked like
there's
a
like
roller coaster.
there's like a roller coaster, there's
Yeah,
Fantasyland, there's like, there's like
yeah,
a big boat in the middle of the mall and all sorts of stuff. And they have a big water park with like water slides and a wave pool and everything like that. So it's interesting, like you go into the mall and it's like mandatory masks everywhere. Like everyone's
yeah,
got a mask, social distancing, staying apart. And then you go you go to the water park, which is where we went, and it is just like, no, you don't have to wear a mask here unless you're in line to buy food. Then you have to wear a mask. So you're in the wave pool, and there's like 50 people all like in this very close proximity getting
yeah,
blasted by the water. And it's like, no, the virus, it won't
yeah,
travel here. That's fine.
yeah, yeah.
It's just
That's
like
hilarious.
two very polarizing experiences, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's interesting.
yeah. There's a lot of things right now that are happening that just don't make sense.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. I saw a just kind of jumping topics a little bit, but still very relevant to things not making sense. There's I don't know if you follow JP Sears and all of his videos. He posted that one like how a civil war could start, which was I thought was just amazing, like so informative. I was so blown away by it because he's also so funny, but it was like very insightful to really to have him like really delineate, be like, look, everyone says that Biden won, and maybe he will, but it actually hasn't been announced or decided yet. It's just the media has decided for everybody, and they made everyone believe that this was the outcome, even if it wasn't. And so, in terms of like things not making sense, there's another one we can definitely mark off on the 2020 insanity calendar of like what's really going on here.
Yeah.
Who
Well,
even knows?
it's like Bashar has been calling, Bashar channel by Daryl Anka.
Yeah,
He's been
yeah.
calling the window between 2020 and 2023 the eye of the needle, which is essentially like refining your expression, your sense of self in a way that is most exciting, most preferential to you because you're in this like tornado of possibility and different parallel realities all converging that are going to reflect back to you anything you haven't been looking at. So it's kind of like you can ride that wave and have extreme acceleration into a more positive future or now. Or you can get caught up in the game, and the game is who's right, who's wrong, left versus right. I need to make more money. I need to get achievements. Like that's the game. And right now, like in our company, we call it the game of the game, which is what's the game of the game? It's who we're being now in the process. It's are we having a lot of fun with the process? Like are the means the actually feeling like the end to us? Like can we actually feel good about doing something, sharing something, creating something just for its own sake and not wanting to gain or get security, safety, or whatever it might be. And that's been a great game changer for us is just to focus on that, the game of the game.
Cool. So that's kind of like your how would you describe this? Like I often like to relate life as a video game in a sort of like a game like quality to life in the sense of like who it's like you get to choose your character and what kind of outfit your character wears and what kind of mannerisms that they have. And then there's like with that character, what do you do out in the world? So would you say like the game of the game is sort of part of that? Who is your avatar that is playing the game?
The person playing the game, like on the controller.
Yeah.
And it's like if you're really just playing the game, you're that type of kid with like Cheetos all over your face, and you're just pissed off, like you lose the level and you chuck the controller. And, like that's when you're playing the game. When you're playing the game of the game, you lose the level and you go, oh man, that was really exciting. What did I learn? Oh, I learned this. That was a success then. Cool. I'm still happy.
I like that. That's very well said. Yeah. So what would you say then for someone who's listening to this, for someone who wants to start playing the game of the game, like what is the first step that you would recommend someone starts with for getting into that getting the Cheetos off their face, getting a little less angry while they're playing.
Yeah. First of all, don't eat any processed Cheetos. Just don't. Just skip that. Learn from, past generations. The first step for me would be self-honesty. So it's being really honest with yourself. Are you acting in your highest excitement or not? That's really the question. Am I doing what I really love in life, what I'm really passionate about, or not? And it's very easy to not be honest and say, well, this is my highest excitement because it's what I think I need to do in order to then get somewhere exciting. Like a lot of people go, well, I'm doing this so I can create financial freedom, or so I can create something that will then let me just relax and do what I love. And that's not the same thing. That's a condition. So being really honest with yourself. Are you acting in your excitement and joy? What do you really think about yourself and other people? And getting really honest and just doing an honest self-evaluation. Because if you're not willing to look at your shadow and the aspects of yourself that are creating resistance and negativity, then you can act on your excitement all you want, but you're going to keep oscillating between, I'm acting on my excitement, now I'm going to go and avoid my anxiety that's coming up. Excitement, avoid anxiety. And you're just going to keep, you're not really going to go anywhere. So self-honesty is huge, because you have to know where you're at now and really accept that. And learn the process of transformation. Learn how to question your own mind, because as soon as you get honest with yourself and you go, you know what, I'm lying to this person, I don't want to be in this relationship. I'm lying to myself. I don't want to be in this career. I'm lying to myself to say that I'm not worried all the time about this. Like, get really honest. Then you have the ability to actually change those beliefs and those patterns. But until there's honesty and a desire to change, nothing will change.
Mm-hmm. Just being with that. That's really good. Yeah. I mean, and even like, just sometimes that's I think part of the key too is taking in the information and being with it. I often find that I want to fill the space of silence with, more dialogue, and it's just like, wait a second. He said something profound. Let's think about that for a second.
Yeah, maybe we should just have a little moment of silence for the viewers just to sink in.
Yeah. Brandon, I have a question for you. What is the most, like, because you've been working with a lot of people and you're a facilitator of miracles, what would you say is like the most profound miracle that you have ever witnessed with someone that you've been working with?
Yeah. So first one that comes to mind is this woman who went to a retreat that we hosted in Ojai. Do you know Nathaniel Solis?
I do know Nathaniel Solis.
Yeah, he's one of my best friends. We were co-facilitating a retreat. And she came out, and she didn't tell us until she was at the retreat that the week before she got a scan on one of her breasts and had a tumor, a growth. And she didn't tell us until she was at the event. And she might have not even told us until the very end. So we didn't necessarily know. And she was just going through it. And she was one of the most honest and had the greatest desire to change probably out of anyone from the group, obviously, because she just got this news that, hey, this looks like cancer. So she just was very honest with herself, with her relationship, with where she was putting expectations on others, where she was trying to control, where she was feeling like a victim to herself and her body. And after 2 days of self-inquiry, of questioning the mind, having her on a vegan diet, and doing some body work, more like myofascial release kind of stuff, she went home and got a scan, and it was completely gone. So 1 week she had this tumor, and the retreat was 3 days long. It was a short little weekend thing. 2 main full days, came back a couple days later, and it was completely gone. So that was really awesome. because it wasn't like
Wow.
a Joe Dispenza 7 days of intense meditation to do it. It was getting right into the questioning and inquiry process around what thoughts are creating stress in her body. And once there was nothing left that she could find, then she was just in a complete state of relaxation, aka a complete state of healing. And so, she shifted to a version of reality where she never had the tumor. That's what spontaneous remission and healing really is. It's a total re-identification of self, going, I'm not someone that had a tumor or that has a tumor anymore. That identity is so far that I can't even relate with that because I am this healed person. And then boom, the reality reflects it. And that's what happened. So that was definitely a profound experience.
Wow. That's amazing. That's it. That reminds me of a very similar story that we put into our ayahuasca documentary about rhythmia, where there was a woman who had cancer and she like purged out her cancer and then went back and it was gone, after doing a test. And it's so interesting. I think to be able to look at this, all of this kind of information, your story and the ayahuasca and the whole thing, and saying like, look, we have the ability to heal this kind of stuff. And depending on your belief system, like for someone else looking at this information, they'll either understand that it has to do with them and their vibrational state, or they'll think, oh, this is a miracle cure. I can heal my cancer, and they'll like treat it as this external cure and not something that requires their complete full participation. And so this is where you get then people who are like, well, I had cancer and I took ayahuasca, but it didn't do anything, right? Because they didn't recognize that they have to be still, as much as they're like, it's the game of the game, they're still playing,
Right. Exactly. And that's where, we have the ability to override our own belief system and say, I really believe this thing is going to cure me. But the higher understanding, like in A Course in Miracles, they say that's magic, but we're in the business of miracles. Magic isn't real. Magic is an illusion. Magic is where you think something is going to change you or can affect you, and it's completely out of your control, power, or choice. Miracles is going, this is permission. This is giving me permission to match the frequency that it's offering, which is a healing vibration. So when someone heals, it's not that something else healed them. It's physically impossible, actually, for them to be healed by something else, even in surgeries. I love the example from "You Are the Placebo" by Joe Dispenza, where they did 2 surgeries on like chronic inflammation in the knees. I think it was arthritis or something like that, and they did an actual surgery on some of the people. And then they did a surgery where they just cut the skin and then they stitched it back up. And they told them this surgery was a complete success. Long term, I'm talking 10 years later, they follow up with the people that didn't have a surgery, that had a fake surgery, that don't know that. And they still have no inflammation in the knee. And some of them even did better than the people that had the surgery. So what does that tell you? It's the person that's creating the healing. It's the belief, it's the body and their belief in the healing that creates the healing, not the actual physical thing itself. It's a co-creation.
Whoa. Yeah, actually, this is very interesting. Although it's okay, this is it's a story on the other side of the spectrum of the exact same thing. It's a little darker, but it was from, where was it? It might have even been like Biology of Belief, or maybe not. That's a little more lighthearted. But there was some I think it was a book I was reading about this exact same subject. Might have been Caroline Casey too, who basically shared that like there was sort of this like kind of a darker story, like a torture experiment or something that was done where someone had like they thought that they were being cut, like someone like scraped them, and then a tap was turned on nearby to stimulate the sound of running of blood dripping on the floor or whatever. They thought it was their blood, and they died from the shock of feeling like they were bleeding out, even though they didn't have a scratch on them. And or all they had was a scratch on them that made them, they thought that they were cut. And it's I guess maybe it just goes to show of like how our beliefs can completely shape our lives in a positive or a negative sense. And we have to be the ones to facilitate like rewriting those unhealthy patterns and ideas about ourselves to create like profound healing if we want that.
Yeah. And it all comes back down to understanding that we are one, and that there's really no out there. And that when all of my experience is happening in my own mind. And it's a really practical thing when you actually ask someone, where are you hearing me right now? Where are you seeing me right now? You're not seeing me out there. You're not hearing me from out there. Everything is happening in your brain. When I hear a dog barking miles away, I'm not hearing it miles away. I'm hearing it right here within my own mind. And that is only where you can experience life. And so from that idea, oh, wait, I'm only interpreting my own mind. That's all I can work with. Someone walks across the room. I'm the one that's creating them walking across the room. When I say they're walking across the room, now I'm having an experience of that. So we can't get away from the meaning that we place into things. And the true breakthrough for me, and I think for most people, is when they understand that you're not just making things mean something, but the meaning that you're choosing is creating the experience itself, is co-creating the experience itself. So it's not like you're making meaning of an objective reality. Your meaning is creating the reality. Your perception and the reality are inseparable.
Yeah. I'd be very curious to hear what you think about Dr. Rupert Sheldrake's work. Are you familiar with him, first of all?
No.
So he's a scientist who's actually like the mainstream would probably consider him a fringe scientist, but he actually has done like very prominent research on what he's calling the morphogenic field theory, which is that our thoughts and our feelings expand beyond the body. And he's done all these experiments that basically prove telepathy is a real thing. He's absolutely incredible. But I remember seeing an interview with him once where he was describing, he's like, look, we have this this materialistic science view of the world, and oftentimes it's put forth kind of similar to what you just described of like, you see something and it's all just the neurons and everything inside of your brain that's experiencing it. And it's like kind of isolated. Your experience is isolated to being within you. And he says, well, but if our thoughts and our feelings extend beyond the body, then I'm not necessarily seeing you entirely within here. I'm actually forming like this sort of like quantum energetic link that is reflected internally and externally, and that there might be there's information traveling from you on the outside that's coming into me, and then I'm having my experience, and maybe like it's being filtered through my perception, filtered through my beliefs or my whatever, so I could be seeing you in this way or like this way, or some people could be listening to this being like, these guys are insane, and that's information from outside of them that's coming in and being filtered through their belief. And it makes me think it's like almost like, in the Hermetic teachings, it says that like, God is an infinite or operates through a supreme infinite mind, and that everything is a thought in the mind of God. Like the entire universe is a thought. We are thoughts in this cosmic mind. And in that case, then it almost is like, this whole idea of we are one extends into like I'm a neural synapses in the cosmic mind, and you're a neural synapses. We're like transferring information back and forth, sort of thing. Just as much as it's within each of us, it's also within this larger internal spectrum that we're all sort of inside of a greater container. But I just thought, I kind of went out there for a minute, but I would love to hear your thoughts. Like, what do you make of that?
I love that. So the first thing I think of is like you and I right now, we're co-creating a reality. It's like a Vesica Pisces, right? From my point of view, I could be experiencing, let's say, a version of you that's talking about chocolate, because something about you talking about chocolate, which I sense you like chocolate.
I like raw cacao.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. so I could be, from my experience of reality, where the entire reality is literally within me. It's within my consciousness, co-creating an experience that is most relevant for the overall evolution of my soul based in the themes of exploration I chose in this lifetime. Because again, consciousness is efficient and it's only going to do relevant things. It can't do anything that's irrelevant. So what's the most relevant thing for everyone's overall growth and expansion? That's what we're always going to be experiencing. That's why when we talked about relationships before, that you really start to key into, oh, this moment must be the most important moment in my life right now because I'm experiencing it. So I can be experiencing a conversation in this Vesica Pisces where you're reflecting back to me what I need to know. Simultaneously, you could be experiencing a conversation where I'm talking about something totally different in your reality than I would be talking about in my reality. So I could be sitting here sharing what I'm sharing with you, but in your reality, I could be talking about cheese because that's what you need. And we're actually interacting with our own versions of each other. And on another level, I'm willing to be that version for you because I know on that level, I am you and I want what's best for you. And you're doing the same thing for me. So we're literally always interacting with a version of ourselves that we need for ourselves, but it doesn't take away from the co-creative aspect that says you're agreeing to play out that role for me. So there's the one, my experience, there's the two experience that's super multidimensional and dynamic. And then there's the third, which is someone viewing this experience. And the person viewing this experience could hear a different conversation even then than our conversation, so there's all these different levels of co-creation.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, I guess on like a vibratory level, you can see it almost like we're creating waves, and then with every person who watches this podcast after, it's like the waves are kind of rippling out. But some people will be like receiving and transmitting the wave differently than how the original vibration was, but it's still all rippling out in some capacity in some way, I guess.
And there's this download came through in a medicine ceremony where I was playing the flute and I said, man, I think one of the most challenging aspects for humanity at this time, in terms of consciousness, is to really understand things in a multidimensional way, because linear thinking is what gets us into conflict, right, wrong, good, bad, beginning, end. It's all division.
Yeah.
And there's whole groups on our planet that believe in linearity so strongly that they've created a whole body of work called psychology. And it's not all, limiting, but some aspects of it have created an entire body of work that said, well, that doesn't make sense, so it's a fallacy. Your truth and this person's truth that are diametrically opposed can't both be correct. They can't both be valid. They're opposites.
Right.
There has to be one truth. And then
and mine is the right one. So
right. And what really happens is these two truths literally create evidence of each other. And when enough people believe someone's personal truth, then that collective declares it the truth. That's how truth is born. So one person believed the earth was flat, then a collective saw the evidence that this person was creating, and then it became the truth for that culture, and then that could happen on a global level. This is why when someone creates a new truth, it's so challenged, because then the whole culture, is challenged. So when we really understand, man, what's true for me is my truth, and I will create evidence for it that's just as valid as someone else's truth. And you can see it in the scientific community. There is truth and evidence for almost every theory.
100%.
Almost every theory.
Yeah.
We're just and we've already proven that the observer affects the outcome, and they're inseparable. So what is that telling you? All truths are true. Your truth is true for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I really resonate. I go, there's no way I can know this, but I haven't been able to disprove it yet. I really believe that the 5 laws that Bashar has shared about the only objective reality are truly the only objective reality, and that we are then it creates a contextual field where we can have an infinite subjective experience. And when I've studied those, I've gone, man, I see all of the Hermetic principles as either synonyms or subcategories of these 5. I haven't found anything outside of it. And that's just from my own curiosity of going, what's the truth, And what I found is like, whether I know that or not, it doesn't take away or really add to my ability to create a happy experience. Like you
Man.
don't need to know those things necessarily to be happy now.
Yeah, I was gonna go to the Hermetic Principles too, because even like it's like built into I think it's a principle of polarity. It's like all paradoxes can be reconciled. All truths are but half truths, and
Yep.
it's kind of speaking to that. Like, yeah, what do you believe? Earth is round, flat, or hollow? Either way, you're kind of right, because whatever you're choosing to believe is true for you, and that will shape the life that you're living, right?
Yeah.
And then you start factoring into like, well, it's like, well, maybe in the third dimension it looks like this, but
Yeah.
on the fifth dimension, who can say what shape the earth is?
Right.
So
Right.
so you start getting like really, really big and encompassing, and suddenly all of the barriers of isolation, separation fall away.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to ask then, this is kind of weaving in a few different ideas here that we've been talking about. You said consciousness is efficient. And
Mhm.
I kind of want to clarify or just ask you for the clarification. Would you say that consciousness is efficient, but maybe like the human ego struggles with
Mhm.
efficiency? Or do you think that even
Totally.
like when someone's in like an isolated bubble, they're still like laser sharp efficient for that paradigm of their thinking?
Right. So yeah, it's about the definition of efficient, because there's a
Mm,
lot of people on the planet that believe efficiency is what is most commonly known as productivity. And
mm,
most people that believe that in order to be supported in life or in order to be happy, you need to get a certain amount of things done. And it's about a doing, it's about a getting, it's about something in the future. Um, it's not productive in the sense of it's not going to bring you fulfillment and joy and happiness all of the time just because you're productive physically with something. So, but again, if you use that experience to learn and grow, then it was the most productive experience that you could possibly have. So the paradox is what is happening right now is the most productive thing because it is happening. And if I don't think it's productive, then I go into stress. Then I'm in resistance. But if I agree, accept, or love what is, then I'm going to witness its perfection. I'm going to learn what I need to learn from it. And great. But if I'm not learning what I think I need to learn, like when you look back in hindsight, you go, man, I should have done this, or I could have learned that sooner. You couldn't have. That's the truth. That was as productive as you could have possibly been. That was as efficient as you could have possibly been. So efficiency is really a synonym for what is. It's all is what it is for a reason. It's not a mistake. Um, and the paradox is that leads you to accept what is. And then you will experience efficiency in a positive way because you can be really efficient at resisting your reality. It's not a right or wrong or judgment call. It's just that's how you're experiencing reality. But again, what's efficient about consciousness is there's choice built in. So there's always choice at every level. It's just up to you.
yeah. Whoa. That's really beautiful. Very well said. So, I kind of want to ask you next then, out of everything that's going on both in your reality out in the world, what is the thing that you want to talk about most? Like if you is there a subject or an area of interest for you that is just like really exciting, invigorating for you right now?
Yeah, right now it's about integrating different disciplines and areas of thought to kind of like end the compartmentalization of the reflection of the compartmentalization of our consciousness in all these different areas of thought where ones are more valid than the other. Science is more valid than psychology and philosophy and all of these different little categories. I believe they're all talking about the same thing. Not
Mm,
everyone wants the same thing. A feeling to be happy, to be joyful. And there's this pursuit of trying to figure out what's true, what they need to know, what they need to understand in order to be that. The truth is, it's what they need to not know. It's what they need to know they don't know, and what they need to unlearn that then starts to say, oh man, I'm already that, the journey without distance. I'm already what I've been seeking. And therefore, I could see all of these different categories are really the same one thing. It's just people trying to figure things out, trying to figure out how to feel happy. So for me, it's like we're launching our course, the 13, in January, and the 13 represents an integrated experience of transformation where there is every area of thought that seems to be compartmentalized as different areas of thought that are all speaking about the same thing that are relevant to our personal transformation and journey of self-realization. So the transformational implications of our scientific community, of psychology, of physics and metaphysics, and actually taking all of that and creating a truly holistic and integrated approach to healing and transformation. So that right now is amongst the top of my highest excitement.
Oh, that's beautiful. Do you see that being sort of the direction that humanity's going to go, like post 2020 and into the future?
100%. So I believe that, the age of segregation is ending, where, the way that you are going to transform and or find salvation is only through religion, or is only through psychotherapy, or is only through this. And we're starting to see they're all attempting to get to the same result. So I think people will still specialize in things because we're all, have our own specialization kind of built into our essence. But I think the polarization and the lack of recognition of, hey, this is all about personal transformation. It's not about who's right, who's wrong, or what you're going to find necessarily. That's the game. Again, the game of the game is all of these are trying to get us to the same one place.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to start integrating, just like we're integrating. And instead of going, I'm going to work really hard and then live my passion when I'm retired, we're going, why can't I just do that all the time? And I don't have one passion. I have 17 different ones, and I'm going to embrace them all. It's like we are integrating in our consciousness. So I feel that that's coming together. And really, I would love to get to a place where our programs become accepted by the academic community, where they are able to go, man, this stuff that seems so esoteric has profound, practical, transformational qualities. Let's integrate that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that you brought up the mainstream academia, I guess, if you will, and that's kind of what I'm curious to ask you. Then is like, it seems as though the mainstream, which you could probably incorporate to saying both, the mainstream media, the mainstream, kind of the news and the social media and as well as just like kind of just general academia and whatnot. It's very slow to change, and also seems to especially as far as the news goes, has its own agenda or idea of where it's going and what's right or wrong, right? Like I thought it was very curious why, like, the news is seemingly notoriously, on the more left-wing side of the equation, right? Very like, oh, this is the hero, this is the villain, just very clear cutting a much more colorful spectrum of everything that's going on. And so, like, for what you're talking about, right, like this adoption of a new way of thinking and everything, like what do you see as being like maybe necessary to overcome, or what's going to have to happen for more mass adoption of like an open-minded way of thinking? Like how would that come about?
Yeah, so at least as of now, humanity, from my perspective, and I think this is changing, but from my perspective, for some reason, needs to create pain in order to create change, to go, this isn't working. And I think we're seeing that now in 2020. We're seeing that we're fed up with the news. We're seeing that we're fed up with a non-transparent government. There's a lot that's going on where we're going, we just had enough. And so I think that at least for most people, and not all people, but most people that are operating within that paradigm, they're going to need to reach a point of contrast and pain where they say, I've had enough, and I've tried to control, I've tried to do all of these other things. I've had enough. I'll go do the crazy stuff now. If it means I'm going to get out of this pain, like I'll go do the spiritual stuff. I'll go do this work that is abundant. There's thousands of amazing coaches and facilitators and healers in the world, millions. So I think it's just part of our evolutionary process to search and seek for answers from outside of us until we reach a point of, the ego's main construct, which is to seek but never find, until we reach that point of pain going, okay, I want to do something different. And unfortunately, a lot of people do that through disease, because the perpetual thinking creates perpetual stress, which ends up manifesting physically. My dad, for example, he is in a process of transforming and healing himself from cancer. And the cancer has led him to profound spiritual awakening, diving into all Joe Dispenza's work. He had this white light awakening in meditation where he came to me and said, I know God exists for the first time in my life. He's 80% on a vegan diet. It's just incredible, the transformation. So although it's true that you don't have to go through hell to get to heaven, there's a large population right now that is just playing that out. Yeah. So I think it will be something natural, like a tipping point of I've had enough. And those of us that don't need the pain to choose heaven now, those of us that are acting on our highest excitement and passion, are like way showers, just having our hands out, not in a superior way, just saying this is what works for us. And there's very quickly going to be a catapult, like a rubber band you just pull so far back into the dark that just snaps forward into, well, if they can do it, why not me? Because I don't want to live anymore going down this direction. I think that's where humanity is getting. So I think it's just going to be a natural transformation.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's like a good way of looking at it too. It's more optimistic than some people really have it. When you look out in the world, it's like, oh no, everything is really going in the tubes. But I think you're right too, of like, it's, there's I don't know if it's a mantra or more of maybe a business mantra. I picked it up sometime in the last year of just learning how to do this Spirit Studios thing of people either move away from pain or towards pleasure. Yeah. But generally speaking, pain is stronger, right? Yeah. Like, because people get complacent. They're like, well, I have Netflix and popcorn. Why do I need to work towards building some sort of spiritual city of light? But then it's like, oh, you take away their Netflix and their popcorn and suddenly they're like, well, we got to change things, move in another direction.
True. It's true. And I think a lot of people can get discouraged by all the negativity they're seeing in the world. But I do want to remind everyone that's listening, becoming aware of more negativity is a side effect of positive expansion, because positive expansion is integrative. It's connective. It's all encompassing. And so it will connect you to the negativity that was already here, that before that was invisible to you, because you're now of a vibration that's powerful enough to transform it, to respond to it in a positive way. So you can't change something you're not aware of. You can't change something you're not willing to take responsibility for, which really means to just respond to. So we have to get it all out on the table and go, well, what are the negative things that are happening right now that have been happening since the dinosaurs? This ain't new stuff. But now we have it all on the table. Now we can decide what we want to do with it. We can perpetuate it and go down that road. Perfectly valid. I'm not here to tell anyone what they should or should not do. Or we can use it in a positive way to learn from those choices and learn the consequences of our actions and become spiritual adults that back their beliefs with action, not just sitting around and meditating on it, which can be very helpful, but actually letting that go into action of what you believe in and what you believe works best for you.
Yeah. Yeah, bringing it down into something more real. I definitely agree with that. And we recently made a video about toxic positivity, and it was very, sorry, was I?
It's a great title.
Yeah. It was a very polarizing, but like very well received video, just like, because people were like, wow, nobody talks about this. This is great, because that seems to be one of the challenges of like, no, it'll just be fine. It's great. We're just going to sit here and be in love while the whole world is collapsing around us. Right. And it's like when you it's like toxic positivity to me seems almost just like when you put on that kind of superficial mask of everything's fine, and even maybe even like have a little bit of that, like the meditation, law of attraction, it's great, but then you don't reinforce that with actions. It just becomes words. And then if your actions don't match, then what are your actions actually reflecting? And it almost seems like maybe fear to participate, or complacency, or laziness, or any of these things. And that's where positivity becomes toxic, because you're not living it, right? Like if you really are wanting to be the change you want to see in the world, then give to someone who's in need. Pick up a hitchhiker, or do whatever it is that you need to do that demonstrates the qualities that you've been talking about.
Exactly. And that's what our definition of a miracle worker is. It's not someone that talks about miracles and talks about shifting their perception. It's someone that's doing it, because you teach what you do, not what you say. And if you're not doing it, then you don't know it yet. And those are synonymous. If you really know something to be true, that you create your own reality, that it doesn't matter what's going on around you, that you can use it in a positive way, that means you affirm the aspects of you that believe it's negative, and you do that integrative work to transform that into something positive. And you extract that gold from whatever situation, and then you physically respond that way. That's what you're teaching.
Yeah.
And if you do it, you know that you're that powerful. If you don't, then you don't absolutely know it yet.
Yeah. Would you agree also that like you teach the thing that you need to learn the most?
Totally. I wouldn't say it's an absolute, but in my experience, totally. Yeah. And what I love about that, actually, because, I've heard people say, like, you can't take people deeper than you've taken yourself. And, you're going to teach, like, some of these things, especially in the healing and coaching community, again, like Hermetic philosophy, it's always yes and. It's like, I can't take someone as deep as I've gone before. Well, have you ever been in such an altered state of consciousness that you're not even identified as you when you're with someone else? That you're not even being the normal you? That you're in such a channel of information and flow that someone needed that energy, that frequency that you're allowing through, that they choose to go deeper than anyone in the room. And it's not because of you, it's because of whatever you were doing gave them permission to go deeper maybe than you've ever gone. I've seen that happen before.
Yeah.
And then same thing with teaching what you need to know. I say the beautiful part about coaching or helping people with the process of self-realization and transformation is that my job isn't to create transformation for them. It's not to heal them. It's not to fix them. It's none of these things. It's to realize there is no client necessarily, that there is me talking to a version of myself, that I'm having an opportunity to reinforce what's true for me and use them as permission. So when when I'm speaking with a client and they're in let's say a pattern of scarcity, I'm perceiving that as an opportunity for me to reinforce within myself how abundant I am by reinforcing it in them. Because what I see in you, what I think about you, what I believe about you is exactly what I see and think and believe about myself. So when I use that as an opportunity to reinforce the empowerment and the power and the love for myself by seeing it within them, and I have no insistence that they need to transform or do anything, but that process for me is exciting and fun for its own sake, then you create this unconditional healing space.
Beautiful. That's so special, I think. Like, and for everyone listening to it, I can even just say, like, don't be afraid to talk about it and share it, even if you're only learning, even if you only know this much about a subject, being able to talk about it and share it. If you know one thing about a subject, but someone else knows zero, you can learn more about it by being able to share it. And I think, like, I had this experience with spirit science that I guess is still kind of going, although it's such a big thing now. But when I first started, it was such a new thing, and I was just becoming aware of the various levels of almost like psychic sensation, I suppose. And I would remember, like, I would share a video about, let's say, sacred geometry, and the next thing you know, I was learning so much more about that subject than I ever knew when I was making and before I made that video. And I felt like teaching about the subject, one, helped me learn, helped a lot of other people learn, but I also felt that it became almost like an antenna where I sent out a signal, and then here's a 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 people watching this video, and then all of their thoughts all kind of like coming back to me a little bit, and I'm like, wow, like it's like accelerated learning. It feels like and then we all kind of all grow and learn together as we do. It's thrilling, really. So we all help each other grow and learn.
Yeah, and it speaks to the idea that asking questions is great, and there is this myth that like we are at our core ignorant. And I don't believe that. I believe we have the ability to ask God or our higher mind for information, and that we can receive it sometimes even before we answer the question. And I've had those experiences myself. It's just about letting go of the beliefs that say we can't have a conversation with God, like Neil Donald Walsh would say. And so that is so available. And when we make statements, we're also perpetuating information. So I can ask a question and receive information. But if I'm in a place of teaching and making statements about things, then I'm saying to the universe, I enjoy teaching. I know about this subject. I'm interested in sharing this subject. So now I'm going to get all that back. I'm going to get more information to share, because that's what I'm doing. I'm sharing information. So what am I going to get back? More exciting information to share. So sometimes our statements and what we're just offering to the world can actually bring to us just as much or even more information than a question. Because sometimes if we're in the question and we're in the question too long, we're just in a question. We're just in a not knowing, or not receiving. But when we're in the, this is what I know, this is what feels good, we just tend to attract more of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would almost think too that if you're in the question for so long and you just become stuck, then you're not really in the question anymore. Because I feel like as long as you're in the authenticity of a question, that you are compelled into something new, into that what feels good, into what, like, learning something new and exploring something new. And then usually a question will lead to another question. You have a question, you have an answer, and then that'll lead to, what does this mean? Or how does this work next? And it kind of facilitates a flow. And if you're just like, if the question ends with, I don't know, then you're stuck.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you don't need to know. And that's the best thing you can receive is, I don't need to know that right now. Like, I think I need to know that to just feel at peace. That's funny. Like,
Yeah.
And sometimes literally the question is the answer. If you take the question mark and straighten it into an exclamation point, you go, man, is there a connection between sacred geometry and all the chakras? Whoa, the fact that I can even perceive that means there is a connection, So I just go, there is a connection. What might that be? Now I'm in a new question.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like looking for the patterns. So, Brandon, this has been really amazing. I think in sort of the spirit of bringing the conversation into like a state of wholeness and completion, what would you share as like the most important thing, for everyone listening? Like, what would you like to leave everyone with, if you had like one thing to bring it all together?
Yeah, that the only thing that creates your experience of the experience of your reality is your perception. You're never upset at other people. You're never disempowered by circumstances, and you're never in pain because of what has happened in the past or what will happen in the future. It's always an unquestioned story, an unquestioned thought about your reality. So instead of trying to create change by, metaphorically being in the movie theater, wanting a different movie, wanting to see a different life, instead of going to the screen and trying to change the screen and feeling powerless and hopeless, you have to go to the projector, which is how you're viewing the movie. That's the only thing in your control. So when that becomes your focus of life, am I in this moment right now happy? Am I in this moment right now defining my reality and defining myself in such a way that allows me to feel acceptance, excitement, passion, and joy for life? If not, then do the work on questioning why you believe right now is not enough, why you believe something is missing right now, why you believe you need to have something that you don't already have. Start questioning those thoughts And when you do that, you'll realize you've always been free. You're loved by everyone. They just might not realize it yet because they might be questioning, going through their own process. And that it's just all been an illusion of your mind. And when you really realize that you're only upset at your own mind, then you're 100% back in your power.
Wow. Beautiful. Brandon, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast today, man.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Super epic conversation.
This is really special. I think people are going to get a lot out of it. For everyone watching, how can anyone find you if they want to look you up?
So I'm really active on Instagram. It's just brandon.bozarth, my first and last name. You'll find me there. Also my website, brandonbozarth.com. Facebook, you just search my name, but I'd say the most prominent presence is on Instagram. I also have a show every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time on a network called Conscious Vitality. And that's where I share more of a multidimensional aspect of myself. We didn't dive into more of the channeling that I do, the channeling work that I do. So that's on that show on Conscious Vitality.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool. Well, I guess with that, we bring this call to a close, but thank you again so much for being here. This was amazing.
Yeah. Appreciate you, Jordan.
Yeah, you too. The next time you come on, we'll talk about channeling.
Yes, let's do it.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Cool.
All right. Bye. Bye, everyone.